Hello, my name is Ashlyn Bartlett, and for my lesson plan, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to incorporate drugs and addiction into a genetics animal science class. This lesson plan will be 5 days with a 50-minute class period. Above on it, I will have references for you all for all the different sources I used. For my materials, I'm going to use lab utensils, rats, rubber gloves, and extra trash bags. And my objectives will be students will be able to explain what addiction is and how genes influence it. Students will also be able to identify why animals are used in studying addiction. My special circumstances, so these are for students with IEPs, 504s, will vary based off the records I receive from an office or who is in my current class, but I always like to give guided notes for anything I ever do. For my academic language, here are some words that will be hard for some students or new for some students. So I always like to do is I give a little definition term, little word box on any worksheets I have, or I have a page where students can keep new terms. So I always open a class up with announcements. Then I'm going to go into my hook. In my hook, I am using a warm-up question and then a think, pair, share. Students will be asked to write down what the word addiction means in their own words. Then students will share their definition with a partner. After, 2 students will be then selected to share what they believe addiction means with the class. After students will share, I will further build off those thoughts to create that bridge into the lesson. I will show them the dictionary definition of what addiction is, explain as a class will focus when it comes to addiction, and I will briefly share about how both humans and animals contribute to the understanding of genetic factors in substance abuse and addiction. Then I will pose a pondering question: can addiction run in families? So going on for my objectives, so this is a part of day 1, part day 2, and I will focus on what is addiction and how genes influence it. My input strategy is going to be PowerPoint with guided notes. I am going to talk about addiction and how it is a complex disease. Then I'm going to talk about the 50% of addiction is due to genes and the other 50% is due to environment. So this will be on the slideshow. And then I will make sure I note that not every addict carries the same gene, and not every addict who carries the addiction trait will exhibit that trait. And while I give this on a PowerPoint, I will be walking around the classroom while explaining the information to make sure everyone's listening. For checking for understanding, I will ask the following questions: what % of addiction is due to genetics? And what are healthy coping strategies you can do when you are feeling stressed? After this, I will have a Socratic seminar for my application of this information. The seminar should take about 30 to 45 minutes depending on how in-depth the conversation gets or where students go with it. Next to it, I have listed some questions of scenarios that I will face for students unless students do come up with their own, and if they do, I will run with them if they carry on with the topic. One, I will ask, like number 5, are your genetics your destiny when it comes to addiction? And for that, the answer is no. They are not your destiny. You can change it. Then for a day 2, my objective will be that students will identify animals that are used in studies for addiction. My input strategy will be a discussion. In this discussion, students will learn the science of addiction and prepare for their lab, which consists of dissecting a rat brain. For the content, I will have another slideshow just to explain to students what's going to go on and give them the procedures. I will talk about how mice and rats are used to study addiction and how they are very similar to humans. Below, you can see that I have a picture of a human brain compared next to a rat brain. Then I will talk about the specific genes that show where addiction happens, such as that dopamine receptor gene, how if mice are lacking serotonin, what happens, and how this reflects to humans. And then for checking of understanding, I will ask 3 questions. How similar is the average mouse gene to the corresponding human gene? What does the limbic system control in both rats and humans? What is one discovery you found interesting after scientists studied rodents? After that, I will then have my lab, which you can see below pictures of the different brains of the rat and also a human brain so students can compare. We're going to label the brain together and carefully bring it out of the skull of the rat. Then for a review, I will have the class discuss, and we will discuss again what addiction is, what influences, what are healthy and non-healthy coping skills, why we use rodents to study genes, why do we think it's important to understand science behind addiction, and then I will provide a video of statistics, and that comes from a USDA source. I do encourage you all watch this link. It's actually very informative, and it talks about statistics in adolescents around. And then for my assessment/review, students will have for homework will have the option to do a following project individually or in a group of 3 max. They will use the National Institute on Drug Abuse for Teens as their main source of information, and students will collect appropriate statistics and information about a specific drug and see how it affects the brain or the body, so the genetic side of it all. And they will also research if genetics inheritance is a factor when it comes to that specific addiction of that drug. And students will put together a 10-minute presentation and will present for their classmates. And then for my closure, I will recap on what addiction is, give a few stats, I will challenge them, I will give them appreciation for what they have learned and what they worked hard with, and then I will thank them.